We're good. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel. Welcome to my book club. Vampires Are My Special Interest Book Club is the title. Welcome. Normally we read short story collections. Currently we are in between books for the second week. I like to do this between books just to have a little fun and go a little off course, go a little kooky, go a little crazy. And today we're going to keep reading the T's in a vampire encyclopedia. I'm excited because I had fun last time. Hold on, let me move things around. Okay. We made it through. Oh. No, I don't want to close OBS. Jesus. Moving things around. Kindle. There we are. We made it through to Vampires in Thailand. And I got a little frustrated last time because I didn't understand the sources. Just because a dude wrote a book in the 1920s about it doesn't mean we should trust what the man in the 1920s said. And I was really curious about their sources and if they were like proper ones or not. So I went through, which ones? Not the Turan, the Talamar. I tried to like double check the sources. That's what we do here. We go a little bit insane when we're left with an encyclopedia. Let's see, what would he say? Last time he said, can this single source even be trusted? Why no other sources, sir? Also, spiritual intercourse? Why? Did you make that up? So I checked on the Talamar's source, which is R.H. Crodrington, the Melanesian Studies in Their Anthropology and Folklore published in 1891, and I think republished in 1969. We were both, me and the viewer, were confused by the opening sentence in this, which was the Talamar was the vampire-like creature of the Banks Island in the South Pacific. The people of Banks Island had a strong belief in the possibility of lively intercourse with the ghosts of the dead. I did not know what that meant. I was very confused. Are you telling me there's people in the South Pacific who believe in the possibility of lively sex with ghosts? Are you sure? It just completely threw me when I was reading it. But I did actually read the source, and oh boy, there it is. Okay. I believe he used the term intercourse, the primary source. I believe the writer of the encyclopedia used the term intercourse because his primary source from the 1890s uses the term. In that case, it means old-timey interactions like dialogue. But that was really funny to realize, like, no, he doesn't mean sex with spirits. Also, I went through just to see what exactly the primary source said. Because, you know, the encyclopedia basically summarizes it, and I was interested. There is a belief in the Banks Islands in the existence of a power like that of vampires. A man or woman would obtain this power out of a morbid desire for communion with some ghosts, and to gain it would steal and eat a morsel of a corpse. The ghost then of the dead man who would join in a close friendship with the person who had eaten and would gratify him by afflicting anyone against whom his ghostly power might be directed. The man so afflicted would feel that something was influencing his life and would come to dread some particular person among his neighbors who was therefore suspected of being a Talamar. This This latter, when seized and tried in the smoke of strong-smelling leaves, would call out the name of the dead man whose ghost was his familiar, often the names of more than one, and lastly the name of the man who was afflicted. The same name, Talamar, was given to one whose soul was supposed to go out and eat the soul or lingering life of a freshly dead corpse. There was a woman some years ago of whom the story is told that she made no secret of doing this, and that once on the death of a neighbor she gave notice that she should go in the night and eat the corpse. The friends of the deceased therefore kept watch in the house where the corpse lay, and at dead of night heard a scratching at the door, followed by a rustling noise close by the corpse. One of them threw a stone and seemed to hit the unseeing thing, and in the morning the Talamar was found with a bruise on her arm, which she confessed was caused by a stone thrown at her while she was eating the corpse. Such a woman would feel morbid delight in the dread which she inspired, and would also be secretly rewarded by some whose secret spite she gratified, which is pretty dang close to the encyclopedia. But what I was interested in also was the source, R.H. Codrington, the main source of the information of the creature, and then it retells that story. I tried looking on Google. I'm not sure how to find what I'm looking for. Generally, people like to discuss, findings. Sorry, I'm just looking for my cat. She's crying to me and I can't tell where she is. Are you over there, dummy? Come here. Come here so I can put you on the floor. Okay. You can't, it was 1891 is rife with racism, especially of, native Aboriginal indigenous tribes outside of, European continents. So, how much could we trust what a dude wrote in the 1890s? But as far as I could tell, nobody thinks that he's full of shit or anything. Everybody seems to just study what he said. I couldn't really find any other information about Talamar outside of his book. So, I guess it's as good a source as any to include in this encyclopedia. It sounds as legit as it's ever going to get when it's a ghost story retold 1,000,000 times before we ever even wrote it down in 1891. But it's interesting. Yeah. Hi, kitty. Say hi to the people. Can they even see you? She was sitting on me earlier for pets. She's being greedy today for it. Yes, buttons. Anyway, then there's a long, multi-page entry about television vampires, which was interesting. The temple, which is a cult. Okay, and then what is it? The vampires in Thailand. Also, was it dorky to say vexed? It vexed me. Yeah, I got confused. Yeah. Vampires in Thailand. Source, what page, what volume, ? I looked into W.A. Graham, Siam, 2 volumes, London, the De La Moore Press, 1924. Again, I didn't find seemingly any information about the specific vampire, the Phai Song Nang, that they describe here. They appeared as beautiful young women and attacked and vampirized young men. The ways of the Phai were known to be to the various occult practitioners, from sorcerers to mediums. The Madu, a seer, would be called in cases of a person who had been attacked by a Phai. Whatever. Yeah, just this one sentence, really. They appeared as beautiful young women and attacked and vampirized young men. I couldn't seem to find anything outside of, say, this encyclopedia, various blogs, and everybody goes back to this, either this encyclopedia as a source or as this W.A. Graham guy. And I had trouble finding out who he is. I tried, looking up his name 1,000,000 times. He kept trying to tell me that he's a senator, but the senator in question died 50 years before this book came out, so I don't think that he was that man. Ultimately, in the last seconds of searching before I had to stream, I did figure it out that, hold on, checking my OBS. Yes. He was the president of the Siam Society under royal patronage. I'm on the Wikipedia. I don't know how to show the Wikipedia without fucking up everything and showing my chat. So just look up the Siam Society under royal patronage, established in 1904, with a mission to promote knowledge of the culture, history, arts, and natural sciences of Thailand, as well as those neighboring countries. And this W.A. Graham was the president of the society in 1921 to 1925. So, assuming that this place is legit, I don't know how to search that up on my own, just Google and some pluck. Assuming this society has been legit since its creation in 1904, then I assume that the president of it for 3 years, the 1920s, who then went on to write 2 volumes about Siam itself, is also legit. And I clipped the actual little entry. It's like one run-on sentence. Against the Phi Song Nong, the ghosts of ladies who have loved too dearly and too often, young men cannot be too carefully warned, their obsession being to tempt susceptible male creatures from the paths of virtue by appearing before them in entrancing but diabolical beauty, afterwards devouring any who fall victims to their wiles. Which I guess you could say is a vampire. Cool. What was I thinking while I was reading it? Oh, notably, it's ghosts of ladies. No mention of a vampire. I'm not sure who turned it into a, hey, this could be a vampire, other than possibly this writer here, our plucky, I don't remember his name, our plucky author of our encyclopedia. And even then, it's like, among the Phi who were believed to inhabit the countryside were the ghosts of people killed by animals, women who died in childbirth, people who died and did not have proper funeral rites, and those who died suddenly and unexpectedly. It's like, oh, oops. Well, I made that mistake. It's like, they could be vampires, I guess, if you want them to be. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I respect that. Because you can't just, all of us who are fascinated by vampires are also, why am I in the K's? I went in the opposite direction. Are fascinated by, different cultures and how they view this plucky creature. So yeah, I'll allow it. My complaints thus far in this little notebook then have been kind of dropped to not nearly as many as when we started. I don't need to save this, but maybe I'll save it somewhere else, whatever. So far, the concerns were, why is this this isn't an Anne Rice encyclopedia. Why are you going into such details about her novels? Can the single source be trusted? Yeah, probably. But it is interesting, again, that it is a single source. And that happens more than once, which is, again, frustrating. I know I'm talking in circles. It's frustrating, but I'll allow it. And then, sounds like you're in a cult. Are you okay? And then, what's the source? What page and what volume? Well, it's the president of the Siam Society, Siam Volume 2, page 287. Moving on to another thing that I'm sure is going to vex me, and why do I keep saying vex? I feel so smart saying it, so I want to keep saying it. That's going to frustrate me. Is Tibet vampires in Tibet, vampires in, because of, again, the very simple sources. And, like, one source is Introduction to Varney the Vampire, but whatever, I'm getting ahead of myself. I should at least read it first. Right? Okay. Tibet, like India and China possessed a rich pantheon of supernatural entities, and many had some vampiric characteristics. Oops, my bad. There you go. Many of these were shared with such neighboring nations as Nepal, Sikkim, and Mongolia. Among the most visible of the vampiric entities were the so-called wrathful deities who appeared in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This volume described what Tibetan Buddhists believe would be experienced by individuals in the days immediately following their death. During these days, the deceased generally wandered into an area dominated by karma, the law of consequences, where the higher impulses of the heart gave way to the reasonings of the brain centers. The heart impulses were personified by the peaceful deities. The brain reasonings were personified by the wrathful deities. Contemporary writers on Tibetan Buddhism have generally emphasized that the deities were not objectively real, but were the products of the person picturing aspects of the self. However, in traditional Buddhist lore, they were pictured as part of a true supernatural realm. The wrathful deities, also called the 58 blood-drinking deities, were believed to begin their appearance on the 8th day after the deceased passed into the post-death realm. For example, the blood-drinking deities of the Varja order appeared on the 9th day. Here, the intellect was represented by... I'm not going to say that. I'm going to fuck that one up. Name here. In one hand, he held a human scalp. He was embraced by his mother. Not saying that. His right hand held a red shell filled with blood that she placed in her son's mouth. Boop. There you go. On the next day, one encountered Ratna Haruka, who appeared like Vajra Haruka, but was yellow rather than blue. The red Padma Haruka appeared on the 11th day. On the 12th day, the blood-drinking deities of the Lotus Order were encountered. On the 13th day, the 8 Kurimas were encountered. These deities had the heads of various animals and engaged in different vampiric and ghoulish actions. One, the dark green Gasamari, for example, held a scalp filled with blood that she stirred with a dorj, a holy object, then drank from it. Other similar deities appeared daily throughout the 14th day. The dying person was given instructions on relating to the deities and prayers to acknowledge them. Individuals were also told to call upon the name of their own guru and their personal deity to sustain them in the loneliness of the after-death realms. It should be noted that these deities did not attack the individual who encountered them. Rather, they were pictured as general representations of vampiric actions previously committed by the deceased. That's cool. Devendra P. Varma, author of The Vampire in Legend, Lore, and Literature, has called attention to Yama, the Tibetan Lord of Death, who, like the Nepalese Lord of Death and the Mongolian God of Time, subsisted by drinking the blood of sleeping people. The Tibetan god had a green face and a blue-green body. In his clawed hand, he held the wheel of life. The Nepalese god had 3 bloodshot eyes with flames issuing from his eyebrows and thunder and lightning from his nostrils. In his hands, he carried a sword and a cup of blood. He was decorated with human skulls. The Mongolian god, with his prominent canine teeth, was seen amidst a storm over a bloody sea. There was also a belief in the pursuit of the living by the dead. The dead were cremated in part to prevent the soul from attempting to re-enter it. The soul after death, like person before death, became the object of ritual, in this case to keep it from interacting improperly with the realm of the living. Cool. I actually have nothing to say here so far. We have 1 paragraph left. This sounds really cool and interesting, and I actually do want to read the source just for fun. A Sikkim vampire. Pharma has also recorded 1 case of non-legendary vampirism in Tibet's neighbor Sikkim. In the early 18th century, Princess Peti Wangmo, the monarch's half-sister, plotted to kill her half-brother. With the assistance of a Tibetan doctor, she bled Chador Namgyal to death and drank his blood. She escaped the palace but was soon caught. Both her and her accomplice were killed. It was believed by some that after death she became a vampire. Her story was recounted in a fresco in a monastery in Sinan near Mounts Kanchenjunga. Sorry about that. Interesting. What are the sources? The Tibetan Book of the Dead, or the after-death experiences on the Bardo Plain, according to Lama Kazi Dawal Samtum's English rendering, 1927. The Vampire in Legend, Lore, and Literature, Introduction to Varney the Vampire, in 1970. I take it back. That's really interesting, and I would love to read more stories or see movies based on these other versions of vampires. I know they still, like, drink blood is the idea, but, like, you can still interweave other cultures into the story and make it its own kind of story. Or if they are out there, please translate them, because I want to read them. I will give you the money, or I will ask my library to give you the money for me. Next one seems to be a actual place. Turgovesti. Let's just do it. I say this every time. I will continue to say it. I'm terrible at other languages, so sorry if I do it wrong, and you can tell, and it's terrible. I'm doing my best. My best is not very good. Turgovesti, the former capital of Wallachia and a section of modern Romania south of the Carpathian Mountains, was the location of the palace where Dracula resided during his years as the Prince of Wallachia. The capital of Wallachia was moved to Turgovesti from Curti de Arges in 1415, and there Mircea the Old, one of Dracula's ancestors, erected the palace that became the seat of power for the prince. During the next century and a half, numerous claimants to the throne briefly resided in Turgovesti in the unstable situation created by the varying fortunes of Wallachia's powerful neighbors. Vlad the Impaler, the historical Dracula, first moved to Turgovesti in 1436 when his father, Vlad Dracul, became the Prince of Wallachia. He lived there only 6 years before he was sent to live among the Turks as a hostage to ensure his father's goodwill toward the Ottoman Empire. Vlad returned to Turgovesti for a brief month in October 1448 when he attempted to assume the throne following the death of his father. He was driven from Turgovesti by Vladislav II and fled to Moldavia. It was not until Vladislav turned on his Hungarian sponsors and fought against John Hunyadi that Vlad became the Hungarian candidate to hold the throne. He again took residence to his childhood home in the spring of 14... Ooh, okay. Looks like you came in and out of connection. I hope the stream is okay. Let me check real quick. It seems like it's in excellent condition. Okay. Things happen. Back to what we were reading. He again took up residence in his childhood home in the spring of 1456. Vlad would rule only 6 years, but he filled those years with a lifetime of adventure and earned his title, Tepes, or the Impaler. The yard in front of the palace became the site of numerous executions by impalement. Vlad had the Chinda Sunset Tower built adjacent to the palace to provide an observation post for viewing the work of the executioners. The first notable event of his brief reign probably occurred on Easter of 1459. He invited the many boyars, feudal landowners, to an Easter feast. After they spent the day eating and drinking, Vlad had his soldiers surround the palace, and he arrested the boyars and their families. The elders were immediately killed, but the remainder were marched away to Curti de Arges to build Vlad's mountain castle. Vlad's 6 years of rule culminated at the gates of Turgovesti In June 1462, for 2 months he had fought a losing battle across Wallachia. The Turkish army, led by Mohammed II, 1432 to 1481, arrived at Turgovisi only to find the impaled bodies of all the Turks who had been taken prisoner. Mohammed II turned back and returned to Adrianople. Vlad followed the retreating army and constantly harassed it. However, Mohammed II gave his army to Vlad's brother, Radu Frumos, who had gained the support of the remaining boyars. Radu chased Vlad to his castle north of Crete de Arges and finally out of the country. Vlad lived as a prisoner of the Hungarians for more than a decade. He gradually gained the support of King Matthias for his return to the Wallachia throne. Vlad returned to Turgovesi in 1476. His stay was short. He moved on to Bucharest just 1 week later. In December of that year, the Turkish army attacked, and the boyars turned on Vlad and killed him. The exact fate of his body is unknown. Turgovesi remained the capital of Wallachia until 1660, when it was officially relocated to Bucharest. In the 1990s, it began to develop as a tourist site. Vlad's Tower has been opened as a museum, and visitors may wander through the palace grounds. Statues of Vlad may be found in nearby parks. Interesting. I don't know why it's specifically about, like, why is the entry... why is his entry Turgovesti? And because it's more about, like, what Vlad, like, Dracula was doing. No, I get it. I mean, this is what he was doing while he was the prince here. Interesting. Funny. That's really funny. I know it's, like, gruesome, but it's also really funny to just stick your... What's wrong with me? Stick your enemies on pikes and then just sort of stand up there and look at their bodies and go... Did he try to, like, arrange them in a certain kind of design? Was he trying to make flowers out of his enemies? Okay. Sources. Dracula, a biography of Vlad the Impaler, 1413 to 1476. And Dracula, Prince of Many Faces, His Life and Times. And Dracula Country, and Dracula Essays on the Life and Times of Vlad Tepes. Cool. Oh, Vampires in Mexico. Why does it say, see, Mexico vampires? What's happening in the T's down there? Anyway, I want to know what's happening in the vampires in Mexico, but we can't get there yet. Alexei Konstantinovich Tolstoy, 1817 to 1875. The 19th century Russian writer who introduced the vampire into Russian literature was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. Tolstoy was educated at home and, at the age of 16, entered government service at the Moscow archives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. While in Moscow, he was able to study at Moscow University, where he absorbed German idealistic philosophy. He received his diploma from the university in 1835. At the beginning of his literary career, influenced by E.T.A. Hoffman's tales, Tolstoy wrote several fantastic/horror stories, the first of which was Upyur, the vampire. Upyur was the story of a young couple, Runevsky and Dasha. The story opened in 19th century Moscow with a group at a ball. Runevsky conversed with a pale young man, Rybarenkow, on the subject of vampires. He predicted that if Dasha went to visit her grandmother, she would die. Eventually, after a series of adventures and some visionary experiences, Runevsky learned the truth. The problem in Dasha's family stemmed from previous generations to an unfaithful wife who killed her husband. As he was dying, he pronounced a curse of madness and vampirism upon her and their heirs. She eventually went insane and committed suicide. Dasha's grandmother inherited the curse. As a vampire, she had already killed Dasha's mother and was prepared to kill Dasha. In the end, he became a believer in the supernatural, although Dasha dismissed everything that happened and believed a more naturalistic explanation. Tolstoy first read the story at one of the local salons, and then, after passing a censor, it had it published under the pseudonym Krasnorovsky in 1841. Here, so you can see it a little better, and maybe look it up yourself. Krasnorovsky. Krasnorovsky. I said it worse the second time. The Enraging Encyclopedia. Hey, Bestie, I didn't see you in here. It was followed by a second supernatural tale, The Reunion After 300 Years, a ghost story. Tolstoy returned to the vampiric theme in his third story, The Family of the Verkodlak. The Verkodlak was the vampire of the southern Slavs. Written in French, it began with the Congress of Vienna in 1815, where the Marquis de Urfa entertained some aristocratic friends with his story. While traveling through Serbia, de Urfa stopped for the night. The family he stayed with was upset as the father had left to fight the Turks. Before he left, Durfa told the family to beware if the father returned in less than 10 days. It was a sign that he had become a verkodlak and should be impaled with an aspen stake. Almost 10 days passed before the father returned. The older son was about to kill him, but was overruled by the family, although the father refused to eat or drink and otherwise behaved strangely. The father then attacked the family, including the daughter to whom de Urfa had been attracted. Durfa continued on his journey, but returned to the village some months later. I lost my place. He was told that the entire family had become vampires. He sought out the young girl, but soon discovered that, in fact, she was now a vampire. He barely escaped from the family. After writing The Family of the Verkodlak, which was not published during his lifetime, Tolstoy wrote a fourth supernatural story, Amina. These 4 stories formed a prologue to his former literary career that was really thought to have begun when he started writing poetry in the late 1840s. That's kind of bullshit. What do you mean his literary career really began when he started writing poetry? It clearly already began. He wrote like 4 short stories. The high point of his career as a poet came in the late 1850s. The period after his service in the Crimean War, 1855 to 1856. In 1861, he resigned from the imperial court and devoted the rest of his life to writing. Tolstoy had been hard to classify, as his works do not readily fit into any of the major schools of the 19th century Russian writing. A loner, he rarely participated in the literary circles of his time, and after leaving the court, settled on his estate in the Ukraine. Tolstoy approved of some westernization, but did not like the more radical activists. He did inject the vampire theme into Russian writing, a theme that would later be picked up by Nikol Gogol and Ivan Turgenev. In 1860, Italian director Mario Bava brought The Family of the Verkodlak to the screen as one of 3 Russian stories in his La Maschera del Dominio, released in the United States as Black Sunday. Thank you. Boris Karloff, who narrated the breaks between the stories, also played the father who had become a Verkodlak. English editions of Tolstoy's stories were published in 1969. I want to read that, and I could have sworn I saw Black Sunday. I don't remember much about it. If I did see it, I probably didn't see it. Okay. Interesting. Cool. Thank you, Alexei Constant. Why did I try to say it again? Tolstoy. Fuck. Sources. A biography. Vampire Stories of the Supernatural. The one published in 1969. I want to look this guy up because I've never heard of him. I didn't know there was a Russian author of vampire stories. How cool. Especially in the 1800s. Very cool. Thank you, Encyclopedia. So far, I have no notes for you, I don't think, except possibly, this is a weird entry. Continuing on. The Tomb of Dracula. The Tomb of Dracula is second only to Vampirella as the most successful vampire-oriented comic book series of all time. Vampires were banned from comic books in 1954 by the Comics Code. I didn't know that. But a revised code in 1971 allowed vampires if they were presented in a manner similar to the vampires of classic Gothic literature. Marvel Comics responded to the change immediately by resurrecting Dracula and setting his new adventures in the 1970s. A familiar cast, composed of the descendants of the characters of Bram Stoker's 1897 novel, were assembled to fight him. Reflecting the changing times, a major female character, Rachel Van Helsing, was an active vampire fighter armed with a crossbow. Blade, the vampire slayer, an African-American, also joined the team. Oh, cool. The Tomb of Dracula characters were soon integrated into the Marvel Comics alternate world. Dracula, Blade, and Hannibal King, another original character introduced in the series, began to appear in various Marvel titles. Doctor Strange, Marvel Premiere, Frankenstein, and Thor, and characters from other titles appeared in the Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, and the Silver Surfer. The Tomb of Dracula was developed under the guidance of writer Marv Wolfman, who created the new characters, and artist Gene Colan. It would be reprinted in England under the title Dracula Lives in black and white, translated into Spanish and Italian, and inspire a Japanese feature-length animated video. Wait, did they mean that Blade the Vampire Hunter was created for this? What? Oh, I gotta look that up. Comic Wiki. Blade character. First appearance, The Tomb of Dracula, number 10, July 1973. What? That is so cool. I didn't know that. I think I just assumed he was like his own guy because of the movies. The more you know. This is why we read encyclopedias. I know the things that come out of my mouth are stupid. I still say them. Okay. It was finally canceled after 70 issues, though it found a brief continuance for 6 issues in a black and white magazine format. One story in each issue continued the Dracula saga. However, Wolfman and Colan moved on to other projects, and through the 1980s, Marvel lost interest in horror fiction. Only in the 1990s was a new attempt to integrate horror into the Marvel Universe attempted. During the early 1990s, Wolfman and Colan revived the storyline from their successful series in a revived 4-part set, The Tomb of Dracula, 1991 to 92, from Marvel subsidiary Epic Comics. The story picked up the life of Frank Drake and Blade the Vampire Slayer, a decade after the killing of Dracula at the end of the original series, and the demise of all Marvel vampires in 1983. Dracula had made his initial return several years previously in Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, and now wished to take revenge on Drake and his loved ones. Subsequently, in 1992, that was the year I was born, as vampires were enjoying what proved to be a temporary return to the Marvel Universe, various individual issues of the original series were reprinted as one-shots under the titles Requiem for Dracula, The Savage Return of Dracula, and The Wedding of Dracula. The Tomb of Dracula one-shots heralded the return of several characters from The Tomb of Dracula, including Blade, Hannibal King, and Frank Drake, who were given new life as partners in a present-day Boston detective agency. They were known as the Night Stalkers, an anti-vampire / anti-demonic force team. Their adventures appeared in 17 issues in which they worked with other like-minded crusaders collectively called the Midnight Suns. At the end of the Night Stalkers issue number 17, Drake and King were killed. Blade survived in a new series for several years, has made subsequent appearances in other Marvel titles, and was featured in the 3 Blade movies starring Wesley Snipes. In 1998, Hannibal King was brought back from the dead for some additional interaction with Dracula, including an appearance in the 3rd of the Blade movies. Really? I used to love those movies. I thought they were so cool, and I especially liked the last one because it had the 2 Jessica Biel and smarmy sarcastic smart guy who plays Deadpool now. What's his face? I thought they were both so hot. I was in love with that movie. From 2003 to 2005, Marvel Comics reprinted all the Tomb of Dracula stories in black and white in 4 large volumes as part of its Essential reprint series, The Essential Tomb of Dracula. That is so interesting. What was this about? The Tomb of Dracula. Wow, I had no idea it was going to be about comic books. And that there was a comics code that banned vampires from them unless they were like the vampires of classic Gothic literature. So they just brought back Dracula. That's so cool. I want to read these now. Oh man, we should read these on stream sometime. It's a book. A comic is a book. It's got book in the title. Comic book. It counts. We'll have to do it as a between stream thing or something. Or between book stream. Ugh. Trading cards, the vampire on. Trading cards offered as premiums for various products, especially bubblegum, grew increasingly popular in the years after World War II, with those picturing sports figures from professional baseball and football taking the lead. Then, in the 1960s, non-sports cards began to come into their own, and it was in this era that vampires first appeared on them, although a few actors who had portrayed vampires had been pictured earlier. It is interesting to note that sports cards have included non-sport themes as part of their huge 400-plus card sets in recent years. In that light, in 1995, Topps Stadium Club football cards included a Vampirella Nightmare subset. Vampirella. That I is just throwing me all off. Vampirella Nightmare subset. And more recently, Allen and Ginter in baseball included authors like Bram Stoker and myths such as the vampire and Chupacabra and their baseball cards. Humor had provided a popular format for trading cards, and humor became the vehicle for introducing the vampire to the media. Why am I messing up? I'm out of water, damn it. As early as 1959, Bubbles Inc. put a vampire card in their series Funny Monsters, You'll Die Laughing, with the caption that posed the question, what have you got in a red perfume that smells like blood? Topps, a major trading card company, entered the field that same year with a picture of Dracula in their Funny Valentine set. The trend continued through the 1960s, with vampires being featured on Topps Monster Laughs, Midgees, Monster Greeting cards, and Monster Laughs. One greeting noted, "You have a good heart, too bad there's a stake in it." While giving away to other formats, humorous cards would continue to appear, and the vampire theme dominated Topps series of wacky packages produced in the 1970s and 1980s, especially the 1989 set. Cartoon representations of Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee were featured on humorists Galen Wilson's 1990 Monster Baseball trading card set. Horror movies emerged as a popular theme for trading cards in the 1960s, and possibly the first vampires in that decade were in the 1961 new card set that included cards from the 1950s movies The Horror of Dracula and Blood of Dracula. 2 years later, the vampires were given more space in the famous Monsters set from Rosen Gum Co. The two original themes that introduced vampires to trading cards came together in the first set of cards to feature vampires. The Monsters Mumbles set, Leaf Brand's 1964, created from the popular television show The Munsters. The set included 72 cards featuring Grandpa Dracula and Lily Munster, with black and white stills from the show and an accompanying humorous caption. Card 37, for example, pictured Grandpa next to a clock asking, "It's midnight, Lily. What's for breakfast?" Or card 12 featured Grandpa observing young Eddie Munster. "This kid plays like he's out for blood." Before the end of the decade, the popular television show Dark Shadows inspired 2 sets of cards from Philadelphia Chewing Gum Company, featuring the cast and its vampire Barnabas Collins with black and white stills. The 1968 set was produced without captions, and the 1969 set was produced with captions. During the 1970s, with black and white cards largely a thing of the past, Marvel Comics began to issue cards picturing covers of their highly successful comic books. The first Marvel vampire appeared in the 1974 series that included a cover from The Tomb of Dracula. However, overall, vampires and horror were not a popular topic during the 1970s, and relatively few appeared, with the exception of a new format known as the vampire card stickers. The picture on these cards could be peeled off and stuck anywhere the owner, presumably a teenager, desired, such as a notebook or the door to a bedroom or locker. The next Marvel set, the Marvel Comic Book Heroes 1975 from Topps, were stickers and included both Dracula, complaining that interesting random picture. Flying drives me bats. And Marvel's new vampire character Morbius asking, "Which way to the blood bank?" Look at this picture. A scene from the movie Blood of Dracula, which was featured on a series of trading cards from New Cards in 1961. Kind of a shitty picture, but trading cards are kind of shitty in general. Topps produced the decade's most unusual set, the Monster Initial cards, each of which had 2 large letters that pictured a monster, including many vampires. After collecting a selection of cards, the letters, which were also stickers, could be removed to spell words that could be placed on school notebooks or other personal objects. And one of Topps' most successful sets, the Wacky Packages, variations of which would continue to appear through the 1980s, included vampires on a can of Bloodweiser and Fang Edward. For the collector, the most desirable and rarest of the decade's vampire cards were the 2 mid-decade sets called Shock Theater, which featured stills from the 2 Christopher Lee Hammer films, movies Frankenstein and Horror of Dracula, with humorous captions. How does this entry keep going? Good God! Oh, thank God. I was wondering if they're going to mention Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series. I do have a couple, I have a set of trading cards for the Vampire Diaries season 4. It was kind of a thing I was obsessed with for a little while. I need to get some water before I continue to read this fucking entry. Does anybody want me to keep reading it? I don't know. Tell me while I'm gone. Jesus Christ, it's like 5 pages. I've decided to keep going. No one can stop me because no one wants to. These 51 card sets were printed as test sets for the United States in 1965 and England the next year, but never widely distributed. They were of relatively high quality and included many pictures of the vampire superstars of the period. Topps would continue to dominate the trading card market through the 1980s, although, like the vampire in the comics, the vampire and trading cards all but disappeared through the decade. Topps Far Out Iron-Ons, a variation of the sticker card, opened the decade with a Dracula for President card, and the Garbage Pail Kids set, 1986, included the likes of Haunted Halls and Batty Barney. However, it was not until the 1990s that vampire trading cards, indeed non-sports trading cards of all kinds, would significantly penetrate the popular culture. Even if you set aside those cards tied to the popular role-playing card game Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, originally released as Jihad, which with its several expansion sets now includes more than 2,000 vampire-related cards, still more than 90% of all of the vampire cards and sets ever produced have appeared since the beginning of the 1990s. The new wave of vampire cards saw an improved quality of both paper stock upon which the cards were printed and enhanced printing techniques. In fact, so good was the reproduction that cards began to be presented as art objects in and of themselves, and a number of graphic artists allowed their fantasy art to be reproduced as card sets. I'm actually kind of getting into this. This is interesting. I wouldn't call myself a collector, but I love the idea of collecting things. I love like learning about the things that people collect. So it's cool that there's so many like these kinds of things for this one person to write about in a book. Like I wonder if there's somebody out there who has every single vampire trading card in existence or something. Various card companies played with different materials, including metal, for making cards, and different methods of highlighting backgrounds, holograms, for example, were used for premium variants in chase cards. Chaos Comics takes credit for introducing the chromium trading cards, first used on the Lady Death set in 1994. Subsequent Lady Death chromium sets had also included cards with Chastity, Purgatory, and other vampires from Chaos titles. In a few cases, such as the chase cards for the 1996 Monsters set, shapes were radically varied. In the 1990s also saw the introduction of a number of different size variations from the standard trading card size. Previously, in the 1960s, a few miniaturized cards had appeared, but cards in the 1970s were enlarged to several different sizes from the standard to the 5x7 inch colossal cards. What did you say? Sorry? Just got to the show to be so like Thank you for letting me know about your shower. It's okay that it's off topic, bestie. You're allowed to say what you want in my stream. God. Right, they were enlarged from the standard 5x7 inch colossal cards. Media led the way in the 1990s with cards based on movies and television. Heralding the new era of vampire trading cards was a 100-card set from Topps, with stills from the Bram Stoker's Dracula, the card set appearing as the movie was released in the fall of 1992. The high-quality set was supplemented with a 16-card set that was distributed simultaneously with the Bram Stoker's Dracula comic book, also published by Topps. A year later, a similar set of 60 cards was released to celebrate the enduring popularity of the original television series Dark Shadows and its vampire Barnabas Collins. Not to be outdone, the Munsters, having enjoyed a revival on television that lasted into the early 1990s, became the subject of a new set of 90 cards from Cairo View Productions in 1996, heralding a new comic book series that began in 1997. I have seen a few episodes of the Munsters, but I've never sat down to watch it. Off topic for me, I suppose, but I was just thinking because Dark Shadows, the Munsters, and the Addams Family seem to be talked about, at least in here, like together a lot. And I've tried to watch Dark Shadows, but have yet to get to the vampire part. And I've seen, like, all of the Addams Family, and I wish there were actual vampires in it. But whatever. Again, off topic. Back to trading cards. A nostalgia similar to that shown for Dark Shadows would also be repeated in similar sets celebrating 2 decades of Hammer films, horror movies 1957 to 1974. In 1995 and 96, Cornerstone Communications released 2 Hammer horror series, each with 81 cards. Individual sheets for saving standard size trading cards have slots for 9 cards per sheet. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be very funny. You're going to be a real side character on this channel once I get my shit together and figure out how to get you on here more often. Well, covering the whole range of horror movies produced by Hammer Films, The Curse of the Frankenstein, The Mummy, The Wolfman. Approximately half of the cards covered Hammer's vampire movies that retained their fan following a quarter of a century after their initial release. Even before the Hammer horror trading cards, Heritage Toy and Game published the famous Hammer playing cards, which again covered a wide range of Hammer horror but played to the vampire titles. Good lord, this keeps going. Okay. Well, I already committed. I get impatient. By the beginning of the 1990s, comic book stores had become the major distributors for non-sports trading cards, and it is not surprising to find a variety of vampire card sets being a spin-off of successful comic books. The most successful vampire comic character of the decade was Vampirella, who appeared in a host of miniseries. In 1995, Topps published the first of 4 Vampirella sets, the 91-card Visions of Vampirella set. Trading cards as artwork was a significant sub-theme of the set, which featured the cover art from both the Warren-era Vampirella comics and the newer titles from Harris Comics, supplemented by original, never-before-published art that Harris had accumulated. The original set was quickly followed by a 72-card set in a larger size, the Vampirella Gallery, which followed the Visions of Vampirella format with art from both the Warren and Harris eras. The third set, Vampirella Master Visions, tested the new market for colossal cards featuring multiple cards from popular Harris artists John Bolton, Amanda Conner, Joe Lago, Joe Quesada, and Jimmy Palmiotti. A fourth set, returning to standard size, featured the artwork of Joe Jusko from the Vampirella Bloodlust comic book series. The initial Vampirella sets explored ways of enticing collectors. In the standard cards, the word Vampirella was printed in red. However, a rarer matching set had the word Vampirella printed in gold. Why do we collect these things? That's kind of making me wonder. When I got my collection, of the 4th season Vampire Diaries, it was because it was really, really funny to me, the concept of them being a trading card theme, because in my head, trading cards mean you literally, like, trade them with people. Like, in my head, you're, like, on the school recess, trading Pokemon cards and also Vampire Diaries cards. And it's like, who would want this card? It's stupid. It's just like a picture of the 2 cast members looking at each other, and the caption is like, Tyler and Caroline want to kiss or something. And then in the back, it's like another picture. And like, it was really funny to me because one of, spoilers for the Vampire Diaries. No, I should just say, a character dies. And it's a big, impactful moment in the series. It's a big deal that this specific character dies, and it's turned into a trading card. And it is just so funny to me to think of this as something you trade with your friends at recess. Even though I guess that's not the point of trading cards. Trading cards is more of a collector's thing that ends up on eBay. I still don't understand why they made this character dying into a trading card. Or, like, Bonnie's grandmother is always dying. Something horrible is always happening to Bonnie's grandmother. Spoiler alert. And I swear to God, every one of those moments is in a trading card, at least of the first 4 seasons, because they stopped making it after that. And it's just, the concept is so weird to me. Mr. Pound Me, is that something I said? Did somebody say, wait, what? Unfortunate last name. It was like Palm Oiti or something. I said that wrong. I'm sure his name is lovely when said by someone who knows how to say it. I forget what I was saying. Oh yeah, explored ways of enticing collectors. I'm enticed by what they decided to turn into a card, and that's why I want to collect it. Not because, in particular, they're fascinating in and of themselves, though they kind of are. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, the Vision of Vampirella had a second oversized subset of Vampirella pinup art, while the gallery set featured an extremely rare single hologram card featuring artwork by legendary Vampirella artist Jose Gonzalez. Yes, that is not what you heard, because I definitely said it wrong. I said it worse the first time. While the Marvel's commitment to its vampire-related characters waxes and wanes, throughout the 1990s it has included the vampire hunters known as the Midnight Suns in its annual sets of trading cards. Beginning in 1992, the Marvel Universe annual issues from Skybox have had cards for Morbius and Blade the Vampire Slayer, and with less consistency, Lilith and Blackout, another Marvel vampire. There's a lot of Marvel vampires. The most spectacular art appeared in the Siege of Darkness and Fall from Grey subsets for the 1994 Marvel Universe. Each subset of 9 cards could be assembled into a larger picture of Morbius, Blade, and their supernatural allies and enemies. Okay, I just want to get to the other stuff. Let's see. Let's talk about Buffy again. The thousands of vampire trading cards published in the 1990s made it possible for card collectors specializing in the single topic of vampires to emerge, and companies continued to produce trading cards for them to collect. Then, at the end of the 1990s, the emergence of the television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer occasioned the significant expansion of the collecting realm for vampire trading cards. In 1998, Inkworks began issuing its very successful Buffy the Vampire Slayer cards, adding card sets for each season of Angel in 2001. Card sets for each season were followed by various retrospect card sets built around particular themes, all capped with the reprinting of the 7 seasons of Buffy cards and a special edition complete with coffin-shaped card box. That's adorable. In the end, Inkworks would produce some 18 sets notable for their many premium cards. As was happening with other card sets based on movies and television shows, costume cards featuring pieces of costumes seen on the show became among the most sought after and hard to get chase cards. Yeah, I wanted some of those too, but they seem kind of impossible to get unless you really want to shell out a lot of money for like a chunk of fabric from a dress that Elena wore once. I personally am enticed by the prospect of them wanting me to be enticed by a clipping of someone's t-shirt. I'm more fascinated with people expecting me to be fascinated with this card than I am fascinated with the card. I don't want a clip of the t-shirt. I just want to own this thing that everybody else wants, which I guess is really what people who collect trading cards think, huh? They want what everybody else wants. So, anyway, in the end, Inkworks would produce some 18 sets notable for their many premium cards. As was happening with other card sets based on movies and television shows, costume cards featuring pieces of costumes seen on the show became among the most sought after and hard to get chase cards. These cards have continued to hold their value after the show's demise, not commonly done by trading cards, some of the most ephemeral of pop culture items. Buffy and Angel cards dominated the decade, which saw a multiplication of vampire-oriented cards, both new sets and individual cards and non-vampire sets. However, by 2008, the publication of new Buffy sets had ended, and Inkworks, shortly before its succumbing to larger economic pressures and going out of business, issued a series of cards drawn from the first movie of Stephenie Meyer's popular Twilight series. The Twilight cards surpassed Buffy's popularity, I bet, and sold out immediately. Inkworks had underestimated the demand and underproduced. The cards skyrocketed in value, and NEC, a company that specializes in movie-related merchandise, which already had a license for a whole range of Twilight paraphernalia, picked up the license for the Twilight trading cards. I want them to. Oh no. They reissued the first Twilight set, minus a few of the chase cards, which also soon sold out, produced the second set related to the second Twilight movie, the Twilight Saga, The New Moon, and will issue future Twilight-related sets. Meanwhile, numerous Twilight-related promo cards, difficult to collect, have appeared from wildly scattered sources. Free when initially distributed, often at a particular comic book or fan convention, they immediately became valued collector's items. The popularity of Buffy and Twilight set the stage for new card sets commemorating the popular vampires of Hammer films, Dark Shadows, The Munsters, and Vampirella. Trading cards were an international phenomenon and can be found throughout the English-speaking world, across Europe, from France to Russia, and very popular in Japan. A number of series have appeared relative to Japanese anime/manga, including popular sets related to Vampire Princess, Miyu, and Blood the Last Vampire. The most popular has been the artwork of Yoshitaka Amano, who drew the images for Vampire Hunter D. Right, yeah. Did I watch Blood the Last Vampire? I think I watched Blood Plus, which is a different thing. Anyway. Unique additions to the world of vampire cards are the popular sketch cards, one-of-a-kind trading cards hand-drawn by artists either as premiums for popular card sets or as freelance works marketed directly to collectors, usually through various comic and fan conventions. In the 1990s, a few companies tried to market odd-shaped cards. Among the vampire cards were a selected number of coffin-shaped cards, including one vampire set. As a whole, these were not well received, as they were difficult to fit into the plastic sheets in which the collectors most commonly store trading cards, and have disappeared from the market, which is sad. You know what you need to do? Make new trading card plastic sheets to put the little coffin-shaped ones in. I want a coffin-shaped card. That's so cute. Note, this entry was developed from the author's own collection of trading cards and with the helpful reflections of Lee Scott of Salt Lake City, also a collector. Information on vampire-related trading card sets may be found at Jeff Allendar's House of Checklists. What? What? Can you do that? Can you just be like, the information from my encyclopedia comes from my collection? Can that be your source? I'm gonna say the most wild batshit stuff and be like, it came from my personal collection. Don't worry about it. What is this webpage? Can I show it? No. Maybe? No, wait. Oh, I made it too big. Hold on. Well, partly it's because it's big. There you go. Now you can see it a little better. Welcome to the House of Checklists. We try to maintain the largest and best listing for all those non-sports cards you've been searching for, now that Mom no longer makes you throw them out. Please be patient if you have questions or contributions. What's new for the June 2020 update? We have 26 new and recent sets for this update. What happens when I click this? There's no pictures of them or anything. Can I look up? This was updated in 2020 and it looks like this. Incredible. How it works. To view the checklists in the database, please use the table of contents above or below. Click on what you want to view. Some checklist groups are placed on the same page as similar groups, so you may see 2 to 3 categories at once. Alright, I mean, I don't... This is such a funny source. This is just some guy's blog. Fantasy? Sci-fi? Disney? Beyond Stoker's Dracula. I'm sad you can't see it. Also, again, very amused that this is some dude's source. We're going to look at the checklists, aren't we? Of course. Of course I'm going to. And I am very confused by why it's a source on an encyclopedia. It's some guy's 1995 web design. And it doesn't even include pictures of the cards. It has a little description and that's it. What kind of bullshit? I completely forgot about the notepad. My first note this whole night is, oh god, where's my notepad? What the fuck, dude? Sources. My collection. Trust me, bro. And some old ass looking janky website that doesn't even include pictures. Save that. Transformation. Good God, are we going to explain what transformation is in the an encyclopedia? Oh my god, okay, fine. How are we looking at this wrong? The vampire traditionally could transform itself into various animals, particularly a bat, a wolf, or a dog. It could also transform into a dust-like cloud or mist. This attribute was often referred to as shape-shifting, and vampire figures often graded into shapeshifters, a particular kind of demon entity in European mythologies. Maybe he just wanted to talk about vampires in various forms and thought that's kind of encyclopedia-ish. Then maybe the person who published it should have been like, actually, you know what? This shouldn't legally be called an encyclopedia or somebody's going to start fighting us. Don't use the word encyclopedia. Use encyclopedia-ish. Source, trust me, bro. That's what the Britannica says, right? Fuck. No one knows what they are anymore. It's fine. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. It's fine. Okay, we're going to talk about their transformations now for some stupid reason. This attribute was often referred to as shape-shifting, and vampire figures often graded into shape-shifters, a particular kind of demon entity in European mythologies. It was also an attribute often tied to witchcraft. In the novel by Bram Stoker, Dracula's first recorded transformations were observed by Jonathan Harker, but occurred in such a manner that neither Harker nor the reader realized what was happening. During the course of the novel, Dracula transformed into a wolf to leave the ship that had wrecked at Whitby, a bat throughout the novel, and as mist in order to enter Mina Murray's bedroom. In one of his encounters with the 3 vampire brides in Castle Dracula, Harker noted that they appeared to him first as a swirl of dust in the moonlight. 25 years prior to Dracula, the transformation of the vampire into an animal had also been an integral part of Sheridan Le Fanu's story, Carmilla. In the story, Carmilla transformed into a cat on several occasions. I need to reread that because I don't remember that at all. I've read it once, a couple years ago. The ability of vampires to transform into animals was part of the folklore of the majority of countries that included a vampire figure. The Japanese, for example, had a well-known tale of a vampire who assumed the form of the wife of Prince Nabeshima and then transformed into a cat to hunt her victims. In various countries in Eastern Europe, the Slavic vampire could transform into a wide variety of animals, and on rare occasions, even some plants and farm implements. The ancient Roman vampire often appeared as a bird, a crow, or screech owl. The transformation into wolves tied vampires to werewolves, the exact relationship being a matter of scholarly disagreement. What's your source, sir? There is no source. Guys, there is no source. You didn't even source Dracula, the novel? You didn't even source Carmilla, the short story? What's your source? The Japanese one doesn't get a source? Who? Okay. I got so stressed out I moved the page by accident. Oh god, are we in trading cards still? No. Scroll. By the time he's tired. He got bored of his own book. The Japanese had a well-known tale of a vampire. Didn't tell me the name of the tale. I'm so fucking mad. Oh my god, no pad, thank you. Transformations doesn't even have a single source, but mentions multiple novels. Okay. Back to this fucking insane thing. In Dracula, Abraham Van Helsing also proposed the idea that vampire transformations were facilitated at certain hours. Dracula could turn into various forms during the evening at a will. However, during the day, late hours, he could change only at noon or exactly at sunrise and sunset. Most likely, Stoker borrowed this idea from Emily Gerard, who reported that Romanians believed that specific times of the day had special significance. Who's Emily Gerard? Where did you get this information? Among these were the exact hour of noon, a precarious time because an evil spirit, Pripolniza, was active. The idea of special powers tied to certain times of the day was dropped by subsequent writers using the vampire theme. I'm going to fight you. What do you mean? And I need you to prove this. You can't just say that. You can't just be like, the idea of special powers tied to certain times of the day was dropped by writers at some point. Subsequently. What is the subsequently? You mean after 1897? Do you mean after Dracula, the beginning of the paragraph? Or after Emily Gerard pointed it out? Whoever that is. Whatever. What the fuck? No, bro. Bro. You gotta trust me. More recent novels and movies have disagreed on the issue of the vampire's power of transformation. The many remakes of Dracula have been fairly consistent with his ability to transform into an animal, at least a bat. In 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula, his ability to transform was a major sub-theme of the plot. However, the influential novels by Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough and Anne Rice have denied the vampire's ability to transform, as have the more recent novels of P.N. Elrod and Elaine Bergstrom. Yarbrough, even more than Rice, stripped her vampires of most of their supernatural abilities, although they were left with great strength and a long life. Could you at least name the novels in which they talk about this? Could you at least name the novels, not just Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough's novels? Who knows how many novels she's written? The trend initiated by Rice and Yarbrough carried over into many books and motion pictures that have stepped back from Dracula and created other vampire characters who exist in a contemporary setting. Thus, transformation has not been an element in the life of the vampires in such movies as Vamp, Near Dark, The Lost Boys, Innocent Blood, Blood Rain, 30 Days of Night, or Let the Right One In. All of that's from 1986 to 2008. Movies such as Van Helsing, 2004, and the popular underworld movie trilogy, and the several Twilight movies featured werewolves who transformed from human to animal, while the vampires more or less stayed in human form. The vampires in television series such as Forever Night, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Moonlight, Blood Ties, or Being Human did not shift into animal forms. The series True Blood has included shapeshifters as an integral part of the story, but they are not vampires. Okay. Hi. Hi, Medusa. You want to come here? Okay, good luck at work. I'm gonna hold my cat. Come here. I need to calm down. I'm too upset at a book. Please come here and let me pet you. She's nowhere near me. She ran away. Please, I need to calm down. I'm very frustrated. You're so small. You're so little. Let me hold you. Transylvania. Transylvania, literally the land beyond the forest, is the area of north-central Romania most identified in the public mind with vampires. Its reputation derives from being designated as the home of Dracula in Bram Stoker's novel. At the beginning of Dracula, 1987, Jonathan Harker traveled from Budapest, Hungary into northern Transylvania, then a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He described the land as why am I adding words? He described the land as one of great beauty, but a wild and little-known place. His final destination was Castle Dracula, a location not noted on any map. Although Harker's destination was a fictional site, the land he moved through was very real. Stoker had never been to Transylvania, but had read about it in books in the British Museum, particularly Emily Gerard's Land Beyond the Forest. Transylvania was the center of a powerful state in the 1st century CE. The territory was partially conquered by Trajan in 106 CE. For the caption, Black Church in Brasov, Transylvania, Romania, in the shadow of which Vlad the Impaler committed some of the atrocities for which he is so well known. Okay. Cool. Over the next several centuries, the merger of the Roman and native people created the distinctive people known today as the Romanians. Christianity of a Roman Latin variety made its initial entrance into the area at this time, although over the centuries the Romanians allied themselves with the Eastern Orthodox Church, headquartered in Constantinople. The area was subject to numerous invasions, more or less successful, by a variety of nomadic people. Most importantly, in the 10th century, incursions and eventually conquests by the Hungarians began. By the 13th century, Hungary claimed hegemony in Transylvania, although the various divisions continued to be ruled by the local territorial lords, the voivodes. The Hungarians I lost track because I'm petting my cat. The Hungarians engaged in several acts of social engineering. First, they persuaded the people of western Transylvania to move into the mountainous area in the east and assume the task of border control. The Kellys emerged as great warriors. Secondly, to improve the economy, the Hungarians invited Germans into southern Transylvania and gave them generous tax benefits. Although they originated from throughout Germany, these people became known as the Saxons. They were most prominent in the towns that controlled the mountain passes between Transylvania and Wallachia, located immediately south of the Carpathians. Today, many of the towns of Transylvania have three names, one each in German, Hungarian, and Romanian. By the 14th century, there were four main groups of Transylvanians: Hungarian-speaking Kellys, Saxons, and Romanians. The Romanians... Are you having fun? You enjoying yourself? Okay. The Romanians, although a majority of the population were the conquered people, and measures to suppress them began in earnest. The Roman Catholic Hungarians launched systemic conversion efforts directed at the Orthodox population. Specific laws were passed to disenfranchise the Romanians, culminating in the 1366 ruling that called into question the traditional status of any Romanian aristocracy who refused to become Roman Catholic and whose loyalty to the Hungarian crown was questionable. Hungary's increasingly oppressive controlled many Romanians to cross the mountains into Moldavia and Wallachia. I feel like it skipped a word, like increasingly oppressive government or something. The migration south promoted the organization of an independent central government in Wallachia in the 14th century, although by the next century it found itself in a constant battle with the Hungarians to the north and the Turks to the south, both of whom wanted to control it. It was in that tension that Vlad Dracul came to the Wallachian throne in 1436. He came to the throne at the same time that John Hunyadi, an outstanding Romanian, emerged in Transylvania. Hunyadi became the governor of Transylvania, and his power rivaled that of the king. Hunyadi's reputation promoted the cause of his son, Matthias, who, at a point of weakness in the Hungarian royal family, became king of Hungary in 1458. Vlad Dracul opposed Hunyadi and was killed in 1447. Prior to ascending the throne, Vlad Dracul was the commander of the guard in Transylvania. He settled in Sigiora, I can't say that, sorry, around 1430. In a short time after his arrival, his son, also named Vlad, was born. The son, later to become known as Vlad the Impaler, was too young to succeed his father in 1447, but eventually gained the throne within months of Hunyadi's death in 1456. Oh God, there's fur everywhere. It's just everywhere. It's everywhere. I can feel it. Yep. As the ruler of Wallachia, he claimed the Transylvanian districts of Amlas and Fagaras. More importantly, he moved against the Saxon merchants of Sibiu for housing his relatives who were claimants to his throne, and Brasov, whose mercantile policies worked against Vlad's attempt to build the Wallachian economy. Hold on. Good Lord. Vlad the Impaler, the historical Dracula, was Wallachian, although he was born in Transylvania, and most of the activities he was famous for occurred there. Bram Stoker placed the fictional Count Dracula in northeastern Transylvania. To arrive at Castle Dracula, Jonathan Harker passed through Klausenberg, Klug Napoca. Sorry for coughing into them so loudly. I hope that wasn't too loud and gross. Jonathan Harker passed through Klausenberg and traveled to Bistritz. This section of Transylvania was correctly identified as territory traditionally ruled by the Kellys. Oh my god, I can't say that word. I don't know how to say Szekels. Sorry. And thus he identified Count Dracula as a member of the traditional ruling class. The issue was confused as Stoker attempted to merge the fictional Count Dracula with Vlad the Impaler, the man known for his battles against the Turks and the bravest of the sons of the land beyond the forest. Stoker also identified Dracula as the arch-vampire. Transylvanian vampire lore was merely a variation of the vampire beliefs found throughout Romania. It's just a fur and it feels like it's on my nose. And shared by neighboring groups of Slavs and Gypsies. That's a slur. Sorry. Historically, the land had no particular reputation as a home to vampires. Today, Transylvania has become a major tourist attraction, drawing people not only for skiing in the Carpathian Mountains and the wine, but for Dracula buffs. There is now a Count Dracula hotel at the middle of the Borgo Pass that hosts a variety of tours and events annually. The Golden Crone Hotel in Bistritz serves the same meal eaten by Jonathan Harker and Dracula. Vlad the Impaler's birthplace in Sighisorar, I know, can't say that, and his palace in Târgoviste provided stopping places for tourists heading northward from Bucharest, and further development seems inevitable. Transylvania's reputation as a home to vampires has been furthered by numerous novelists and movies such as Transylvania 5000, Love at First Bite, and the various adaptations of Dracula. Thank God there are so many sources this time. Transylvania and the History of the Romanians, Dracula, Prince of Many Faces, Dracula Country, What is Transylvania, Typing Transylvania, Reflections on Dracula, Locating Dracula, Contextualizing the Geography of Transylvania. Cool. Transylvania Press, C. 18 Bisang Robert. Okay, I will. Whew. We don't have that much time left. Ooh. Oh, it's Twilight and then Twilight movie. Why not Twilight books? I know the movie is like... I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not. I was a twihard in high school. And then I hated how big it got because I liked it before it was cool. But like, for real. The movie exploded and then like all of the kids who bullied me were loving this book series that I was secretly in love with. It was hell on earth at the time, but yeah, I was a huge Twilight fan and now I just kind of love it in like a vague, I used to love this thing when I was a teenager and I love it because of that, but I don't particularly like it that much kind of thing, kind of vibe I've got going. That doesn't matter. Transylvanian Society of Dracula. I ship Bella with Jacob, by the way. But also with every other female character. Gay. Make her gay. She's the bicycle for me. She's the bicycle ship. Yeah. Transylvanian Society of Dracula. The Transylvanian Society of Dracula, a cultural historical organization, was founded in the early 1990s by a group of leading Romanian historians, ethnographers, folklorists, tourist experts, writers, and artists, as well as non-Romanian experts in the field. Its goal has been the interpretation of Romanian history and folklore, especially as it relates to the 15th century ruler Vlad the Impaler, the historical Dracula, and Romanian folklore concerning vampires. The group also attempts to identify Dracularian traces of the myth and the folklore of other countries around the world. The founding president of the society was Nicolae Paduraru, 1932 to 2009, who for many years had been an official with the Romanian Ministry of Tourism. He was also the general administrator of Count Dracula Treasures Limited. The society organizes tours of various sites in southern Romania associated with Vlad the Impaler and those in Transylvania and the northern area of Romania associated with the novel Dracula. Some 300 people attended the World Dracula Congress sponsored. Did you hear that? Oh my god, it was the whiniest meow. Yes. Shoo. Shoo, I'll give you attention after this. I already gave you attention and you hated it. Some 300 people attended the World Dracula Congress sponsored by the Society in Romania in 1995, an event that marked its worldwide expansion. The American and Canadian chapters were founded during that week, headed by Doctors J. Gordon Melton and Elizabeth Miller, respectively. Dr. Massimo Introvinge, who attended the Congress, subsequently formed an Italian chapter. There is also a chapter in Japan and several chapters in other European countries. In 1997, the American and Canadian chapters, along with the Count Dracula Fan Club, sponsored Dracula 97, a centennial celebration, the International Dracula commemorative event, August 14th to 17th, 1997 in Los Angeles. What are these things? What? I want to... Wait. Count Dracula Fan Club? Does this exist? Count Dracula Fan Club. Facebook, encyclopedia, Dracula Society? The Vampire Empire, formerly the International Count Dracula Fan Club. There's a page for it. Nope. There we go. I know what I'm doing. More about the Transylvanian Society of Dracula. Special notice, the Vampire Empire now serves as a research facility only. The following is the history of the society, which was originally founded in 1965. Further information is available from the president of the society. Elizabeth Miller. Who are these people? The Bram Stoker Society. The Irving Society. Recommended magazines. Bite Me. Discontinued. Happy Halloween. Time marches on, and we are keeping right in step with our various plans and projects. The Count Dracula Fan Club had a long and successful run over 35 years, but when our Dracula Museum moved to Austria, we decided to rethink, refresh, and redefine the society. This resulted in the formation of the Vampire Empire, and we are never looking back. A complimentary copy of The Bizarre World of Vampires, a delightful, witty, and informative book on the vampire and folklore, as well as a copy of Private Files of a Vampirologist, Case Histories and Letters by the president and founder of the society. Okay, what I am finding is things I want to Google so we can read this later and confuse anybody who pops in because they have no idea what I'm talking about. No context. We're just reading a random bunch of crap from some club that stopped being a club like 30 years ago. Okay. Wait, publications. Media? Ooh. Oh yeah, I'm gonna look at this later. That was a zip file. It just started downloading. am I looking at a bunch of pictures? Oh, single press photos. Are these all photos? Interviews? I don't know what's happening, and I am interested. Clearly. One on the other. Okay. Speeches. Trainings. Mock court day. Videos of former trainings. It's about biology. No idea. I have no idea. Well, anyway. Some 20 countries, including a delegation from Romania, attended, and more than 90 scholarly papers were presented on Dracula and vampire studies. The various chapters sponsored different events, among which the several Romanian chapters organize a symposium in Transylvania each May on the anniversary of Jonathan Harker's arrival at Castle Dracula. The International Society sponsored the second Dracula World Congress, Dracula 2000, held at Poiana Brazov, Transylvania, the site of Vlad the Impaler's attack upon the German Transylvanian community during his reign of Wallachia in the 15th century. The theme of the Congress was redefining the diabolic from the perspective of contemporary society. The Society has continued to sponsor conferences in Romania at least annually in the years of the new century, as well as promoting tours of Dracula sites each October around Halloween through the Company of Mysterious Journeys. It offers a variety of Dracula-related products through Count Dracula Treasures. Dracula Treasures doesn't seem to exist anymore. Dracula Treasures. Wow, I did not spell the word treasures like treasures at all. I don't know. Outside of Romania, the most active chapter has been the Canadian chapter headed by Dr. Elizabeth Miller. It issues the Journal of Dracula Studies and may be contacted through its webpage or its mailing address. Whoa. The Italian chapter could be contacted by writing to Dr. Massimo Introvigine there. Okay. That I want to join a Society of Dracula, and I want to read their journal articles about Dracula. Where do I find this? I'm going to look for it after between streams this week for anybody who wants to look, just because I want to look, honestly. But I'll show you what I find if I find anything, if I can figure it out. That's cool. That is cool. I want to join a club, and I don't want to or a cult, a club and or a cult, as long as I don't have to pay more than like $25, maybe $30. If I have to do more than that, I'm not going to do it. If I have to do more than just pay somebody or write someone a letter at an address, I'm not going to do it, but I want to join something. Make it easier and make it cheaper, okay? I have cats. I have to use my money to pay to feed them, okay? I can't just join willy-nilly. Okay, I am still mad at the Vampire Temple for being so much money. Peter Tremaine, 1942 to dash. Peter Tremaine is the pseudonym of Peter Bresford Ellis when writing horror, fantasy, and science fiction works. His first fictional book as Peter Tremaine, The Hound of Frankenstein, was one of 2 books he completed in 1977. The second, Dracula Unborn, released in the U.S. as Bloodright, Memoirs of Mircea, Son of Dracula, was the first of his Dracula series, heavily influenced by the writings on Vlad the Impaler by Radu Florescu and Raymond T. McNally. Tremaine wrote his novel as the long-lost Memoirs of Mircea, Son of Dracula. Mircea, who had been born in but raised outside of Romania, returned to discover his vampiric heritage and meet his father. The second vampire novel, The Revenge of Dracula, followed a year later. Again, Tremaine employed the device of the discovery of formerly lost memoirs. This volume told the story of a 19th century Englishman who discovered a jade dragon statuette. Afterward, he had a number of strange dreams, including one about a Dracula figure. He traveled to Transylvania and upon his return had to be committed to an insane asylum. Tremaine's last novel, Dracula, My Love, was built around the memoirs of Morag, a Scottish governess who moved to Castle Dracula and fell in love with the Count, the first person she encountered who treated her with a sense of dignity. This final novel departed from the first 2 novels in that Dracula was portrayed very positively and sympathetically. Thus, for his last vampire novel, Tremaine participated in the trend to create a vampire hero initiated by Fred Saberhagen and Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough. Ellis continues to write, producing several books annually. His last returned to the Dracula theme in a nonfiction book with co-author Peter Haining, The Undead, published in 1997. I wonder if he's still around. He'd be like 80-something now? Cool. Interesting. Dracula, My Love. I'm wondering how many individual authors ended up in this encyclopedia, because with the birth of self-publishing on Kindle or like Kobo or whatever, there's all kinds of authors with all kinds of vampire stories, and they're really hard to like archive and catalog. Okay. Twilight. Twilight is the name under which individuals involved in vampirism, along with people who have a serious and academic interest in it, have gathered to engage in serious discussion about the nature of vampirism and the issues dominating the new vampire community. Twilight was founded in September of 2007 by a vampire known by his public name, Demonoch. I assume you say it weird because it's possibly French with that X. He is currently, 2009, assisted by another vampire known as Myrticus. Twilight happens as a roaming event held 2 or 3 times annually as expenses allow. To date, all the events have been in the United States, but sites in other countries are under consideration. Participation in Twilight's events are by invitation, following thorough screening in order to ensure the event's quality, integrity, and success. The immediate goal of Twilight is to engage the vampire community in serious discussion, knowledge exchange, and social networking. A longer-term goal is transform Twilight into a roaming event across the United States and beyond. Twilight conferences were held in Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Seattle. Further conferences are in the planning stages as this encyclopedia goes to press. Twilight has a webpage at meetup.com/Twilight. I wonder if they've kept their name. Vampires Today, the truth about modern vampirism. Oh, this has a page. This has a page sourced in its source. Meetup.com/Twilight. Group not found. Twilight. I'm going to look up this guy's name with it. Let's see. There's a live journal. Let me switch so you can see what I'm looking at. Don't know why it keeps falling down like that. Blah blah blah, invitation, the Twilight. And again, the meetup, which doesn't go anywhere, is a formal gathering of individuals involved in vampirism. There's a MySpace aid. MySpace, another MySpace page. How do you figure out? You know, I probably have to like do like a Wayback Machine on these freaking MySpace pages just to see where their links have gone ever since. Where did these people go? Did they disband when Twilight exploded? You know, the books / movies. Did they rename? Did they just give up? Did they decide to give up because it was too weird that everybody expected their vampires to sparkle or hurt? The most annoying joke out of that came from Twilight existing is vampires don't sparkle. Okay. Anyway. It's a real zinger. You know what vampires also don't do? Exist. So we can do whatever we want, including make them sparkle. Twilight movie. Okay, I'll end with this one. I won't go into the new moon one on the bottom. Okay. The movie Twilight was based upon the first novel of the same name in the 4-book Twilight series by author Stephenie Meyer. The novel was adapted for the screen by Melissa Rosenberg, executive producer and writer on TV's The O.C. and Dexter, and directed by Catherine Hardwicke, Lords of Dogtown and The Nativity Story. The movie stars Kristen Stewart as 17-year-old Isabella Bella Swan and Robert Pattinson as Bella's vampire boyfriend Edward Cullen. The movie cost an estimated $37 million and was released in U.S. theaters by Summit Entertainment on November 21st, 2008. The movie Twilight, which follows the novel's basic storyline and essential themes, begins when teenager Bella Swan leaves Phoenix, Arizona to move to the small town of Forks, Washington to live with her father, Charlie. At Forks High School, she finds herself drawn to a mysterious classmate, Edward Cullen, who is a 108-year-old vampire, but is physically only 17 years old. Although Edward discourages the romance at first, he soon falls in love with Bella and allows himself to be with her, knowing he can't live without her. Edward and his family are vegetarian vampires who feed off animal rather than human blood. But the arrival of 3 nomadic vampires, James, Victoria, and Laurent, puts Bella's life in danger because they feed off humans. Edward and his family, Alice, Carlisle, Esme, Jasper, Emmett, and Rosalie, attempt to save Bella by fighting to keep the lethal tracker James from killing her. Meyer's novel was first optioned by Paramount Pictures MTV Films in April 2004. According to director Hardwicke, Paramount's screenplay was substantially different from the original novel, with Bella introduced as a star athlete. When Paramount's rights to the project were about to expire, Summit Entertainment pursued it. Screenwriter Rosenberg attempted to stay as close to the book as possible, but to condense the dialogue and combine some of the characters. As Hardwicke explains, so we kept to the novel's spirit, but there are changes. Meyer worked closely with Summit during the script's development. She drew up a list of rules for his vampire world that could not be changed and made her own suggestions to the script. In an MTV interview, Rosenberg explained that Brokeback Mountain, the story of 2 gay cowboys who fell in love, actually provided her with a great model of poignancy and forbidden love between Bella and Edward. Rosenberg remained true to Twilight's emotions and spirit, but did change a number of the novel's key passages. The villainous vampires, Victoria, James, and Laurent, were introduced much earlier in the film than in the book. The movie's scenes of dinner at the Collins house and Bella and Edward jumping out of the treetops were not in the book. Likewise, the novel scene in the biology room where the students do blood typing and Bella faints is not in the movie. In the book, Bella reveals that she knows he is a vampire while in Edward's car driving back from Port Angeles, but the movie instead provides a more visually dynamic setting of a lush forest and meadow. Principal photography for Twilight took 44 days. Portland and Verona, Oregon, served as locations for the Forks, Washington setting of the novel, and St. Helens, Oregon, stood in for the small town of Port Angeles. A year after its initial release, the film grossed $191 million in North America and more than $384 million in worldwide box office. In addition, more than 9 million DVDs of Twilight have been sold. Twilight won 5 MTV Movie Awards as well as 10 Teen Choice Awards. A graphic novel form of the movie is scheduled to be published by Yen Press, with Korean artist Young Kim creating the art and Meyer herself closely involved with the project. Twilight's movie sequels, The Twilight Saga: New Moon, was released in U.S. theaters November 2009, and Twilight Saga: Eclipse is scheduled for release the summer of 2010. The Twilight Saga: Breaking Dawn, the fourth and final novel, and the Twilight series is currently in development for a 2011 release. Sources: exclusive interview, Twilight screenwriter Melissa Rosenberg, and Twilight: The Complete Illustrated Movie Companion. I actually have the movie companion to New Moon that I got used just because it was there and I thought it'd be fun. I actually intended to maybe read it one day, but I wasn't sure if it crossed the line from a book to movie, you know, because it's a book club here. We are a book club. This is a book club. This is a book club. And we have been reading the Encyclopedia of the Undead. God, what was the guy who made its name? Just go up to the J. Gordon Melton, PhD. He has a PhD, and this is his source. Your sources suck, sir, PhD. That's all I will say. If you hung out with me in the stream, thank you so much for making it to the end. I really do appreciate it. We are between books. I think next week we are going to do the official ranking of the last book that we read, which is right here. Sisters of the Night, edited by Barbara Hambly and Martin H. Greenberg. Going to officially rank it like we officially ranked the first book that we read. And then we'll probably, because it's a pretty small book and I don't think it's going to take up a whole 2 hours to move the things around, the little tier ranking. So we'll probably start the next book too, or maybe we'll read a little bit more of the encyclopedia because I will probably have things to say by then. Okay, thank you again for being here. Appreciate it so much. I will be here next week at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's what I like to do. I like to stream once a week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going in circles. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Bye.